Welcome into another episode of the Movie Geek Podcast. I'm your host, George T., and this is my review and my experience at the screening for John Candy's documentary, I Like Me, which was done by Colin Hanks and Ryan Reynolds, co-produced it. And yeah, I was originally going to watch it on the weekend because it had opened last Friday. But when I saw that Ryan Reynolds was in town with guests doing a screening, I wanted to actually see this on the screen and share in the experience. So I will get to all of that very soon. Like, comment, subscribe, especially for your best or favorite John Candy movie, or scene, what have you. So many films and just iconic roles. Obviously, Spaceballs is like my all-time favorite movie. I can watch that literally without the sound, and it annoys the hell out of everyone. Um, he played Mog. Great Outdoors. I mean, what a funny film, especially the old 96er scene where he has to eat a 96-ounce steak for the family's meal to be free. I we growing up were joking about when we go to these restaurants with these big steaks. Maybe we should try it. Maybe they would give us you know free meals or whatever. Because I mean, it was just such a crazy thing. Um, and then of course, Uncle Buck, um, the table-sized pancakes, and yeah, just again, that was a funny movie. Uh, but ultimately, Splash, Armed and Dangerous, um, right down to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Um, and the list goes on and on. I mean, everything that he was in was made better because he was in it. And this documentary was very enlightening for me. I did not um, realize some aspects of things, and it really was pretty powerful. Obviously, there's a lot of laughs in there. There's a lot of skits, and then of course there's a lot of personal stories and whatnot. And it is sad to know that he had died at the young age of 43 um, due to his heart failure. And it was a tough to watch at the very end with just the emotions of the documentary. But I think Colin and Ryan and all the people that worked on this documentary deserve a lot of praise. And we learned afterwards, right before the roundtable, when Ryan came out with his special guests, that the documentary has been nominated for a Critics' Choice Award. So when the Critics' Choice Award show comes out in January, when I do one, I will definitely, be rooting for this documentary. And again, I've seen a lot of documentaries this year, but this one um, was extra good. And we'll get into it. I mean, I won't give a lot. I'll try not to give a lot away. I will talk about, um, uh, what the roundtable had to say and what we actually did at the very end of the night. So um, let's get into it. So the documentary starts off in 1994. Uh, John had died in March of 94 on the set of Wagons East. And it starts out with his funeral, which was televised on Canadian TV. Um, Obviously, he was well loved, as um, Bill Murray, who, was talking about, he never had a bad thing to say. He tried to figure to try to figure out if there was anything bad to say about John. And then he asked, I believe it was Colin who was interviewing him. Could have been Ryan. I'm not sure. We didn't know who. But he had asked if anyone that they talked to has a bad thing to say about him, let him know so I can praise them. And it just, it was just a good start to it. And then the funeral, and then the flashback to his upbringing uh, in uh, when he was 5 on his birthday. His dad had passed away at 35 years old. Um, it was devastating, obviously, on his birthday. Um, let alone that his dad at 35 was dead of a heart attack. So his family all moved into a home. The kids stayed down in the basement level, and the family um, lived in the upper 2 floors. And his upbringing, he was very close to his family, obviously with everything uh, surrounding his dad. So we get to hear from his brother, and then some childhood friends, and they're telling stories about him growing up. John wanted to be a football player. Now in Canada, there was two things to become, basically. It was either you're a hockey player or you're everything else. So he wanted to be a football player, but he also wanted to act. He did a lot of acting in high school, and theater productions, and so his love for the theater uh, was very, very evident in this film. So he wanted to play football, but he also wanted to be in theater. He blew out his knee, and his junior year or senior year, I don't remember exactly, I can't remember that, but it's in the documentary. Watch it. And then he wanted to go into the military, and that was during the um, Vietnam War. But because he was Canadian, he had to enlist in the U.S. Army and be a resident there. But also, when he went to training, they figured out that his knee was shot and he wouldn't make it. So he stuck with comedy, stuck with the theater, and he then um, branched out in a little comedy troupe with some amazing, amazing people um, up in Canada. So he winds up um, being on this TV show, SCTV, which was a counteract to, or the Canadian version of Saturday Night Live, basically. There was Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, uh, Dan Aykroyd, um, Gilda Radner, um, and just a list of comedy legends, basically. And then eventually he got invited by Dan to come to Second City, which was big at the time, and wanted to do a Canadian base, but it was out of Chicago. They wanted to do a Canadian base out of there, and Dan had taken him along with others. So you had, like, now he was teaming with Martin Short, and um, it was just, there were so many people in this documentary that were touched by him, and so they were all in it. And basically, he started to become a real big star. He wasn't really good at improv at first. Bill Murray had talked about it, where he and Bill were the only two that could act together, because he was more um, he was more a comedic actor than he was an improv actor, but he learned his craft and all of a sudden started to get the roles, and got on to bigger shows and eventually into movies. He also had a family, which is the framework of what John was. John was a family man, um, above the stardom, and I'll get to some of those stories later on, because even there were stories that were told during the roundtable about his uh, you know as they want to say, people pleasing, but he was rooted in his family. So you know, he would look out for his fellow actors. On SCTV, when it really started to get going, he noticed that his paycheck was a little less than some of the head writers. And he was like, well, we all do our own thing. And then also noticed that the women on the staff, Catherine O'Hara especially, was getting paid less than that and fought for her to get paid equally, as long along with himself. So again, he was always looking out for them. And then as his popularity started, he was still very grounded with his home life. And so there were times where he would turn down events to go home and just, detox and make sure that he was present for his kids and his wife, because, again, he didn't have his father growing up. So he wanted to make sure that his family knew he was there and, was going to be there for them. And again, a lot of these comedians in this story kept saying the same thing. He was for everyone. He didn't exclude anyone. And then there's also parts in this documentary, as his fame started to grow, um, that really, you know, at the time, you know, was pretty sad. And now it's even sadder because his big thing was, obviously he was bigger than life. He was a big man, but it wasn't by design or you know by choice. He was just a big framed guy. Yes, so at times he was overweight, but he was thrusted into a spotlight and had to be constantly reminded of it. And the effects, he took that all in stride, on the surface, but he really dug it down deep where, that starts to weigh on you. And that's why he needed those retreats to his family, because he knew that they were going to love him for him, not make fun of him. And again, there's a lot of these interviews, and he, again, he could have gotten angry. He could have, um, he could have said the wrong things, but he never did. But you could see it in his face and just his demeanor that it hurt. It hurt him, and people didn't realize that back then. The 80s. Um, it was pretty much, uh, you know, people really got into oh well, you're heavy, or you look a certain way, or whatever. Obviously nowadays it's a lot more PC, and they don't deal with that as much. But it took its toll on him. His first leading or big role was in a movie called 1941. They wrote a character for him. They also did that for Stripes, which he didn't really want to do, but Bill had asked him to really think about it. Harold Ramis was also instrumental in helping him with that as well. Um, and then his relationship with John Hughes, who was obviously uh, the man behind the Breakfast Club and everything else, saw John and took him with him. The kids talked about how uh, their father and John Hughes and his family were always together during filmings of like Uncle Buck, Home Alone, and Great Outdoors, because those two had such a connection. And Hughes is also seen in the film with the interview that said that they were very simpatico and they worked together so well that he was literally writing roles for him. So um, then Tom Hanks talked about working with him in Splash. Um, he tells a very funny story about John the night before the racquetball scene, the infamous racquetball scene, and I'm hoping that I will be able to show it here, but if not, I'll describe it anyway. Um, he is um, they're out, partying it up a little bit at this hotel bar or this bar, and Jack Nicholson walks in, and Tom had gone back to his room, and then John stayed and partied with Jack Nicholson, and we were all laughing because we know how crazy Jack is, and we've heard all the stories of him. So they were on set the next day. John had showed up, you know, with little rest and coming off a night with Jack Nicholson. And so um, that whole scene, they let him just go. And he was out of breath. And just the scene in general is classic. He's getting hit by the ball and he's out of breath and he asks, how long they've been playing. And, you know, Tom Hanks' character says 5 minutes, and he's like, ah, oh. And then he's like, do you want a beer? And everybody on set was just laughing because that was John. Like he was into his character so much that he just went with it. Um, so that was a pretty funny story. So Jack Nicholson, you know, um, wild man, and he had John out there. So also through the film, um, John, obviously battled his weight, um, and he took on a lot more of a burden when he saw fellow comedians of his that he idolized and worked with started dying off. John Belushi was one of them. I believe in the documentary he told Tom Hanks that he doesn't know how long he had left because his father, he was 34 at the time, and his dad had died at 35. And Tom's like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, my ticker, I have my dad's heart. And that kind of threw up some red flags that you know here's a big star who at times feels like he shouldn't be there, and then on top of that, with the weight of oh my god, my dad died so young, and oh, I have a family at home. It was such a burden for him. Then there's a lot about the stories in there, and again, he was for the people. He loved people. He loved being around them. when he shot Home Alone. Uncle Buck. Macaulay Culkin was in this documentary, and he talked about, people back then. A lot of actors didn't want to work with kids, and John was all for working with kids because he had kids at home and he related to them because he was a big child at heart. Like he loved to have fun with, um, you know, with adults. He loved to have fun with his kids, and so that took Macaulay, you know, a lot to understand because at the time we all know that Macaulay's dad was a tyrant, and John on the set every single day would go to Macaulay when he wasn't around his dad, and he would talk to him, and he would ask him if he was okay, even though John knew he probably wasn't okay. But he wanted to make sure that Macaulay knew that if we're filming a scene together, I want you to know that you're safe here. And that's pretty powerful. And, Macaulay, saying that, you know, he he was such a father figure and stuff when he died, it was very tough because now I didn't have somebody to go to and stuff that I felt could be a father figure, and that is pretty powerful. Later on in his years, he did a lot of celebrity endorsing. He also purchased the Toronto Argonauts with um, the LA Kings owner. I forgot what his name was. And Wayne Gretzky was a partner as well. And he did publicity for the Argonauts of the CFL. He in the documentary, when the others were up um, the press suites, he was down on the field with the players. There's a picture of him carrying one of them off after the guy got injured, but he was just around it, and he really promoted the Canadian Football League, and he was trying to direct, he was trying to help write, and it got really difficult. And then eventually, Wagons East was his last film, and in the film, uh, you know, I forget who was um, who was talking, but one of the co-stars, um, he knew that he was having trouble because he was having anxiety attacks on set, but he wouldn't. John didn't want to be a bother to anyone, so he confided in him. Actually, one day, uh, John had walked out of his trailer and had a panic attack right away. And he was like, "Should I get somebody?" And he's like, "No, no, no. I'm going back to my trailer. I don't want to be a burden. Go ahead and tell the people we're going to shoot. I should be fine." And that was the kind of guy he was. Like he, again, didn't want to inconvenience anybody. And as Ryan says, you know, he was, and others said too, that he was a people pleaser. And when you start to do that in Hollywood, it's not a good thing. And it took a toll on him. Like some of the bombs that he made, like Who's Harry Crumb, and but there's a few others in there that, again, somebody asked him, "Hey, do you want to do this role?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'll do this role. As long as it fits my family schedule." "Oh, yeah, we'll fix it." Boom, done. So he was taking on roles that he probably shouldn't have, um, because he wanted to keep working. He wanted to have his time with his family and keep working. And it was just, again, it was a lot. And then the day of his death, um, the guy, and again, I can't remember his name, and I'm sorry I messed that up, but said that he saw him in his hotel room sitting on the bed reading a Bible. when he passed away. And that's, that has got to be rough to see a man just, you know, I mean, knowing how my father died, um, you know, 25 years ago, um, of a massive heart attack and me being literally right there, um, and feeling helpless is something that I will never forget. So, again, now I'm imagining, as I'm sitting there, I'm imagining John at 5 seeing his father die, and then, conversely, you know, now at 43 and a coworker on set has to see him in a position you're not really familiar with seeing somebody die. It's got to be a lot. At the end of the film, they showed a little bit more um, of his funeral. Um, Dan Aykroyd had done the major part of the eulogy. Catherine O'Hara was in there as well. She did one. Um, and then Martin Short mentioned when, uh, and Steve Martin as well, um, and Eugene Levy, they all were pallbearers for him. And they noticed that nobody was on the highway that day. And they had shut down the 405. And they said 405 never shuts down. The only time it did was for a president, the Pope, and John Candy. So that is pretty amazing. So again, there's a lot in there. I kind of just bounced from point to point. The kids, his daughter and his son, were also interviewed. His wife was, and they gave a lot of stories. And again, he was just such a great man, and it was sad to see, you know, he died so young. Um, I mean, I was a senior in high school when he passed away, and you know, such a you know such a tragedy to lose somebody that young. Um, you know, just like my dad died pretty young. So that was a documentary, and again, I think it was so well done. Colin and Ryan and all the people that worked on it did an amazing job with it. So now the moderator came out. Uh, he is somebody that had been on the tour with Ryan. Dan Pasternak was his name, as he brought out Paul Myers, the brother of Mike Myers, who had wrote a book about um, John Candy's life. And then Ryan came out, and then they started having some fun, talking, telling some stories, and then at the request of Ryan, they brought out a special guest, the lead singer of Bare Naked Ladies, um, Stephen Page, and again they started you know talking and about everything that was going on with the documentary and so on. And um, Paul, um, mentioned that the first time he actually didn't get to meet John, but Mike, his brother, did. And Mike was just trying to start out. He uh, wanted to, be on Second City and really learn his craft. And he said, most, most, guys that probably are that famous probably would say, you know, hey kid, if it doesn't work out, do this and so on. But he took the time to talk to Mike individually and said, if you really love the craft, whether you make it here at Second City, or you're going to a theater, or you're trying out for movies, you gotta keep working at it, and eventually it'll happen, or it won't. But if you love what you do, then that's the biggest thing. And so that was very cool. Then Ryan was talking about uh, two things: how he got Bill Murray to come on, and how he found Dan Aykroyd. So um, the he had um, been trying to get Bill uh, to do the documentary. It was easy to find everyone else, uh, but Bill and Dan were the hardest ones to find. Um, Bill had um, declined, declined to do it, and not because you know, uh, he didn't like John. It was more about like he didn't want to. Um, he just didn't feel comfortable doing it. Um, Dan, on the other hand, apparently was off the grid somewhere in Canada, and nobody could find him. So, uh, you know, Ryan talked about trying to reach out to Dan, uh, out his publicist, his friends, and nobody seemed to know where he was. And then eventually, he got a phone call from Dan himself saying, "Okay, uh, bring yourself up here for one day." And so he drove up to see Dan, and then literally they interacted for like half a day, and then Dan threw him out, and that was pretty funny. And then Bill still was not interested in doing it, so um, eventually uh, Ryan was asking people around Bill to give him Bill's number and contact so that he could try to do it directly, because through his publicist and people around him, he kept declining. So finally, he was really behind on the documentary with Colin, and he did a video call or a video message to send to him, where he was pleading with him to come on. And then it was like 11:30 at night or something, and the kids walked into the room, and um, his he said, uh, I could see in the uh, camera lens that his 6-year-old daughter was in like prime position to like strangle him, and he was thinking the whole time, "Don't do it! Don't do it! Don't do it!" And then his 2-year-old was on the other side, and he said, in the message, "Please, Bill, would you want to disappoint these kids?" And then he turned to the 2-year-old and said, "Can you tell him to do the, the goddamn documentary?" And he said, the 2-year-old pointed and said, "You need to do the documentary." And so the next day, Bill calls him. He, the family, they were ready to go somewhere, and the phone rang, and Blake was like, you know, "Are you going to answer that? Or are we leaving?" And he's like, "Well, it's Bill Murray. I kind of need to answer this." And so she packed up the car while he answered, and the rest is history. Um, Also, some things I did not know in some of his movies. I know there's a lot of Easter eggs from Marvel, but they mentioned Deadpool and Wolverine. And Ryan said that, yes, there is some John Candy Easter eggs in that film. There is the opening scene where he has the mug that says "I like me" with a heart. That was in reference to uh, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Again, I'm hoping that you guys will see the scenes that I'm talking about as well. So I'm going to try to cut those in. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And in the scene that I'm hoping that you'll see is Steve Martin's character berating. John Candy's character in the hotel room.
What is that supposed to mean?
You're not a very tolerant person.
Look, you've been under my skin since New York, starting with ripping off my cab.
God, you're a tight ass.
How'd you like a mouthful of teeth?
Oh, and hostile, too. Nice personality combination. Hostile and intolerant. That's borderline criminal.
Screw you. You spilled beer all over the bed. You smoke. You mess up the bathroom.
Well, who let you stay in the room? I even let you pay for it so you wouldn't feel like an intruder, which you most certainly are.
Oh, I'm an intruder.
Yes, you're an intruder. I was having a perfectly nice trip until you walked into my life.
I walked into your life. Who was that who talked my ear off on the plane? Who was that? I'm curious.
Well, who told you to book a room? I did, out of the goodness of my dumb old heart. Boy, you're an ungrateful jackass. Well, go ahead, sleep in the lobby, see if I care. I hope you wake up so stiff you can't even move.
You're no saint. You got a free cab, you got a free room, and someone who'll listen to your boring stories. I mean, didn't you notice on the plane when you started talking, eventually I started reading the vomit bag? Didn't that give you some sort of clue, like, hey, maybe this guy's not enjoying it? You know, everything is not an anecdote. You have to discriminate. You choose things that are funny or mildly amusing or interesting. You're a miracle. Your stories have none of that. They're not even amusing accidentally. Honey, I'd like you to meet Del Griffith. He's got some amusing anecdotes for you. Oh, and here's a gun so you can blow your brains out. You'll thank me for it. I could tolerate any insurance seminar. For days, I could sit there and listen to them go on and on with a big smile on my face. They'd say, how can you stand it? And I'd say, because I've been with Del Griffith. I can take anything. You know what they'd say? They'd say, I know what you mean. The shower curtain ring guy. Whoa. It's like going on a date with a chatty Cathy doll. I expect you to have a little string on your chest, you know, that I pull out and have to snap back. Except I wouldn't pull it out and snap it back. You would. Ah, 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 ah. And by the way, you know, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
You want to hurt me? Go right ahead if it makes you feel any better. I'm an easy target. Yeah, you're right. I talk too much. I also listen too much. I could be a cold-hearted cynic like you. But I don't like to hurt people's feelings. Well, you think what you want about me. I'm not changing. I like me. My wife likes me. My customers like me. Because I'm the real article. What you see is what you get.
And from all accounts, that was John Candy's visceral reaction to this. This wasn't an acting job. This was him being, you know, John Candy at this point, not just acting. He truly got into it where it was, you know, oh my God, like, you know, I'm hearing all this stuff. And then it came out, the line, I like me, in this scene. And it was all John. It wasn't just something on a piece of paper. You really felt that, you know, or people on the set and people who've seen it who were his friends literally saw John in that moment. It wasn't him just method acting or whatever. So hopefully the clips will show, and you'll see it when we talk about it. But also later on in the film, when they're in the car and Wolverine knows that he lied to him, and he just berates Deadpool.
If they can fix your world?
What do you mean, if?
I mean...
You lied to me. You don't have a f***ing clue if they can help me fix things, do you?
No, I mean...
No!
Fuck! I didn't lie!
You lied!
No, I made an educated wish! Because I need you. This is why. Right here. Because if we don't do something, they die. I don't know anything about saving worlds. And why would I even care? Because my entire world is right here in this picture. It's only 9 people, and I have no idea how to save it alone. I know how to fuck people up for money, but you know how to save them. At least the other Wolverine did. I guess I'm stuck with the worst one.
Did you say you made an educated fucking wish?
They call me the Merc with the Mouth. They don't call me Truthful Timmy, the blowjob queen of Saskatoon.
One more word. Please give me one.
Gubernatorial.
You know what? You're a fucking joke. No wonder the Avengers didn't take you, or the X-Men, and they'll take fucking anyone. I mean, you are a ridiculous, immature, half-wit moron. I have never met a sadder, more attention-starved, jabbering little prick in my entire life, and that says a lot, because I've been alive for more than 200 fucking years. And I'll tell you, that bald chick was right about one thing. You will never save the world. You couldn't even save a relationship with a goddamn stripper. And motherfucker, I wish I could say you die alone. But it's one of God's best jokes that you can't die, except it's on all of us. Well, you got nothing to say, mouth?
I'm gonna fight you now.
So again, there was a lot of laughs too. Ryan is hilarious in person as well as from his commercials and his movies. There was a lot of Canadian jokes and just other personal you know feelings and thoughts while he was working on this documentary. And then finally, how the night ended. They wanted Stephen to sing. So he got up there and sang one of the songs from the documentary. And then afterwards, they did an encore. But this time they wanted Ryan to sing and the song and us as an audience to sing along. And it was If I Had $1,000,000. And I know that I don't really know a lot about music, but I know they were ad-libbing in between. If I had $1,000,000, so they would say the lines, from the song, but then they would ad-lib, or they would just keep ad-libbing, and it was crazy, and they got the audience involved, and standing ovation at the end, and again, it was such a fun night. Such a fun night. And I'm so glad I had this experience. And even bigger is that not only did we get to see it, but every ticket that was sold and any merchandise in that theater that got sold last night, all, and I say this, all the proceeds went to St. Jude Children's Research. Amazing. So I was lucky to, again, buy a ticket and help out St. Jude. Crazy. So that is my review and my night at the Shubert Theater in Boston. I hope that you enjoyed this, and go and watch the documentary if you haven't seen it yet. This is the whole reason why I wanted to talk about this, because John touched so many lives, and he was such a larger than life father figure to a lot, to a lot of people, and he had his career unfortunately cut short, and yeah. So again, go watch the documentary if you were a big John Candy fan. Also, interact with me. Let me know what your favorite scene was from a movie, or what movie you loved, or anything, even his SCTV days, and then some other work that he did for sketch comedy shows. Um, that's all, and I will see you all at the movies.
You like that, baby? Let him know where I came from, yeah!
See you next time. Bye.
Waiting for you. Goodbye. 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 Hasta la vista, baby.
That's all, folks.